Conquer Anxiety and Frustration. By Vernon Howard. There are hundreds of false and useless ways to conquer anxiety and frustration. There is one true and workable way. You are about to discover it. There was a famous scientist whose discoveries had contributed much to worldwide health and happiness. One day he was asked by a reporter, "What is the secret of your success?" The scientists replied, "A willingness to learn the new and the true." A willingness to learn the new and the true is also the secret of success in the personal life. This noble attitude can conquer anxiety, frustration, and every other unwanted habit. Besides, a person who is really willing to learn possesses a certain freshness of spirit, a confident eagerness. Start in the right direction right now by having a willingness. 1. To drop habitual but useless ideas. 2. To value truth above all else. 3. To be wrong if necessary. 4. To let nothing block your search. Anxiety and frustration prowl together, like a pair of wolves. Anxiety includes feelings of frustration. Frustration causes anxiety. Conquer one and you also conquer the other. The author of this publication once noticed 3 discarded signs laying beside the road. Printed by hand on each was the name of a different city. Obviously they had been tossed aside by a hitchhiker. You can imagine the hitchhiker holding up to motorists one sign after another, hoping that one of them would guarantee him a destination. Anxiety grips anyone who inwardly travels east one day, followed by switching to west, north, south. Traveling without knowing where you want to go creates underground worry that erupts regularly in irritation and tears. Anxiety is conquered by traveling the highway to your spiritual destination. There is no other solution and none should be sought. Seeking relief elsewhere will only prolong the weary wait by the side of the road. Here is the error made by troubled people. In an attempt to relieve the stunned sadness of a purposeless life, they frantically invent their own purpose. It could be money-making, feeling secure by conforming to a lost society, dulling the mind with nonsensical activities, finding excuses to make short or long trips, and so on. A mind heavy with anxiety tries to find the right inner highway, but this is an impossibility. It is like a fish on the ocean floor trying to find an eagle's nest. But the solution is simple enough. A person trying to throw off distress must see clearly that his present ways do not succeed and cannot succeed. If they could have worked, they would have worked, but they have not. So the sufferer must stop doing the wrong things toward the lifting of tension. He must stop trying to take apples out of an empty barrel. By first seeing the impossible as impossible, he then sees the possible as possible. By ceasing to try to impose his own meaning upon life, he finds true meaning in the spiritual journey. And the longer he travels, the more easy and cheerful is his walk. Freedom from frustration. There is only one basic cause of human frustration, and one cure. A feeling of frustration arises when unnecessary desires are blocked. There it is. Just 10 words. Understand them deeply and your life will flow as freely as a mountain brook. Necessary desires are evident enough. We have physical desires for food, shelter, rest, recreation, change of scenery. There are the psychological wishes for social contacts, privacy, communicating, correcting, enjoying. There is also the necessary spiritual desire to grow in understanding of the self and life. It is this higher education that finally conquers frustration. So frustration occurs when we want something we don't need to want. So frustration is a useless condition, a pointless pain. Now we must discover why we crave the worthless. Grasp the following fact firmly. It is the acquired personality, the false self, that cries out for the useless and the foolish. It has hundreds of desperate cravings which serve only its own selfish and dangerous existence. It can never serve you, your real self. To the contrary, it is a thief of true life. And the appetite of the imaginary self can never be satisfied. Like a savage tiger, the more you give it, the more it demands, never letting you rest. See how accurately this describes human activities? You are not your false self, therefore you don't need what it needs. Seeing this supplies pleasantly relaxed days. Your happy task is to separate your real nature from the false nature that has temporarily taken over your life. Do this by watching the desperate cravings of the false self as they start to arise. Your very awareness prevents them from continuing on their course until causing painful frustration. If you are not anxious to have a heavy coat on a hot summer day, you won't feel frustrated by not getting the coat. So be a spiritual detective. Track down useless desires until seeing them as useless. Realize that the cravings themselves will not give themselves away as deceits. The false self will always lie and angrily deny that its worthless cravings are worthless. It will scream that they are necessary for survival, but it is its own sinister survival that it is screaming about. So stay alert to its tricks to keep you enslaved. There is a simple guide by which anyone can see the difference between unhealthy and healthy desires. A false wish goes forth with strain and pain, fearful of not winning what it wants. You can see this strain in the useless desire to impress other people or to try to appear right when you are actually wrong. But a valuable desire contains no conflict or doubt, having instead a quiet and unique feeling of confidence. This healthy feeling is present in any earnest attempt to correct a mental error or to add to your higher wisdom. A spiritually awakened teacher was about to open a school for sincere seekers. He wanted to place a message over the entrance which carried a profound lesson. He wished a message that would follow his students wherever they went over the years to enlighten their spirits. So on the first day of school the entering students read, "You don't have to be someone." What a relief to no longer be forced to prove oneself to oneself. What a pleasure to be free of the frantic desire to appear publicly important. Happiness at last. Take charge of life. When meeting any situation in life, one of two things always happens. 1. The situation takes charge of you. 2. You take charge of the situation. It is one or the other. There is no third choice. So it is important to examine both of them. When a situation takes charge of you, it is always accompanied by a feeling of anxiety. Listen to this discomfort, for it is trying to teach you something valuable. It may be trying to reveal that you are imagining yourself to be in command of the situation, when in fact you are commanded by it. Exposing imaginary self-power is highly helpful. So you need to understand yourself in relation to any situation. This understanding changes you, which in turn increases your general command of life. The situation is in charge of you when 1. You feel drained of energy by it. 2. You are doubtful and indecisive. 3. You anxiously seek allies. 4. You worry over the final outcome. 5. You fear and resent the condition. 6. You blame others for your problems. 7. You constantly change plans. 8. You can't see how it trapped you. 9. You fear other involved people. 10. You wish to evade its responsibility. Taking charge of a situation can only mean one thing: taking charge of yourself. No exterior event has any intelligence or authority in itself. You make the situation whatever it is. A way has been provided for you to remain in command both day and night. No matter how many other people may be defeated by a condition, you can be its conqueror. That higher way is called cosmic command. It becomes your power as you invite higher truths into your life. Cosmic command, working through you, easily does everything needing to be done. You are in charge of the situation when 1. You never see it as a threat to you. 2. You remain calm and efficient. 3. You are not influenced by others. 4. You have no pretense or bluff. 5. You feel the rightness of your actions. 6. You handle it all by yourself. 7. You wish no ego rewards from the event. 8. You have no hostility toward others. 9. You don't care what others think of you. 10. You do only what is true and good. Anxious feelings arise from being wrong about life. For example, if you claim to possess a virtue that you don't really have, you will feel bad. You will feel bad because artificiality always feels bad. Only naturalness feels good. To understand anxiety and frustration, you must also understand egotism. All painful inner states arise from egotism, including anger, jealousy, weakness, a refusal to learn. Egotism is a substitute life, an artificial existence. Not living from his real nature, the individual fills his emptiness with self-praise and self-promotion. But this is self-betrayal, for the very act of trying to build himself is the very act that keeps him nervous about himself. He is like a sailor caught in a storm at sea who tries to feel safe by imagining himself at home. He will never convince himself of it. Imagination cannot take the place of reality. The individual must admit that he is caught in the storm of his own wild nature, for that attracts intelligence for sailing safely home. Cosmic communication cures. Remember the 3 letters CCC. This declares that cosmic communication cures. We must learn how to communicate with an intelligent power that knows more than we do. Wild emotions, such as anxiety and frustration, cannot communicate with solutions to problems. Therefore, the possessor of negative moods denies himself access to self-cure. Compare a wild emotion with a tidal wave. A tidal wave never communicates, it only smashes against whatever is ahead. A tidal wave in the ocean also resembles a human wave of emotion in that both smash themselves apart in the very attack. Anxiety is its own pounding punishment. The more you understand your mind, the less you worry. Here is something to understand. It is not the object of your thinking that is important, but the thinking itself. But most people are wrongly fascinated by the object of their thinking. A man wants to make $1 million. That is the object of his thinking. He rushes out and wrecks his family and his health in this pointless pursuit. He needs to see why he thinks he must make $1 million, which is simply because he foolishly prefers noisy thrills over quiet self-wholeness. And here is a woman who craves social involvements at clubs and with friends. That is the object of her thinking. Wasting her life in rambling in and out, she must see why she wrongly thinks it has value. It is because she hopes that sooner or later she will find herself at one of these places, which she won't. From now on, do not give value to the object of your thinking, but try to understand why you give value to it. A great secret will be revealed to you. Frustrated people think that life-saving methods are either non-existent or tauntingly elusive. The fact is, self-rescuing methods are both available and plentiful. Anyone who really wants something higher than self-assault can have it. But there is a barrier to overcome. It consists of the seeker's own intellect with its accumulated distortions and vanity-serving obsessions. The usual mind cannot know and has no wish to know the way out, for that would end its tyranny over the bewildered individual. So the memory-burdened intellect cannot know the difference between workable methods and imaginary techniques for life freedom. A truthful idea may come to a seeker from the outside, but it immediately bumps against a hard and hostile habitual mind which always sees truth as its enemy and competitor. So a spiritual fact coming from the outside must somehow get past the fiercely self-protective intellect and reach the spirit of truth within the individual. This spirit then informs the person that the message he heard, perhaps in a book or lecture, is indeed a part of itself. The individual then has an authentic spiritual experience in which he knows what is right from himself, from his true nature, not from his mere intellect. How do you enter into all this? How do you cooperate with your own rescue? You must simply be willing to let an outside message reach the inside. You must no longer allow your habit-heavy mind to remain as a blocking wall. So be aware of how you have been unknowingly standing in the way of the rescuing realities. It is like a brave knight who rides forth to deliver a message of good news to a king of a castle. But the king's enemies, while pretending friendship to the king, wait beside the castle wall to stop the message. They fear that the good news for the king will be bad news for them. But the king has one loyal and good officer who shows the knight a secret entrance, and the good news is delivered. The king's loyal officer is that part of any man or woman that wants to serve rightness. It is supremely intelligent. It cannot be defeated by thousands of enemies of the kingdom of truth. It is always ready to reveal the secret entrance to those who want it. A powerful method. Anxiety breeds anxiety. You have seen this many times. Someone in the family gets nervous and everyone else starts to vibrate. Someone makes a sad remark and all faces turn gloomy. There is a way to permanently stop such automatic reactions and remain with your own natural calm. Just reply, "I have nothing to say to that." This is an astonishing technique. Just wait until you see it in full power. And its power is equaled by its simplicity. The first step is to remain alert when people try to weigh you down with their nervous comments and attitudes. You will have plenty to observe, for the whole world staggers under the burden of its own gloom and defeat. The next step is to reply to the attempted attack, "I have nothing to say to that." This cuts off the contagious effect of the negative assault. It blocks your tendency to accept and imitate depressing words from others. Your nature does not fall down to the level of the anxious remark, but remains high above it. Negative people want to get you involved with their defeat, and this is a major method they use to do it. Your reply, "I have nothing to say to that," prevents them from drawing you in as their victim. An attitude of defeat in another person cannot touch you unless you carelessly accept it as yours. And there is no need at all for you to accept it. A quiet refusal to enter the battlefield is the perfect reply. In the past you had a lot to say, which only added more heat to both the war and you. Remember? It is important to build within yourself a strong way of life that casually tells the world, "I have nothing to say to that." Then you will know when to speak the sentence aloud to other people and when to convey the message silently by your facial expression and general manner. This great secret of spiritual silence has been known and practiced by only a few people down through the ages. It can be your secret today. Here are a few details on how it helps. 1. You prove to yourself the existence of a power far stronger than human anxiety. 2. It erases a weak and apologetic manner toward domineering people. 3. You easily turn aside intruders who try to pour their troubles onto you. 4. It provides an entirely new way to react to a defeated world. 5. You find great and lasting relief in simply having nothing to say. A gullible man bought a brick covered with gold paint. But he thought the brick was pure gold. Fearful that other people would steal his brick, he nervously carried it with him wherever he went. The brick was heavy, awkward, and a constant burden, but he felt compelled to protect it. One day he dropped the brick, and a bit of gold paint fell off, revealing the hoax. While it was a shocking experience, he was forever grateful for it, for he was now free of a heavy and unnecessary burden. Whether your burden is anxiety or frustration or anything else, it is a hoax which you do not as yet see as a hoax. A man feels quite sure that it is necessary to fiercely protect his anxious beliefs and ambitions, for he assumes they are valuable to him. But anxiety appears valuable only because the distressed individual has not yet seen through the layer of gold paint. Once the hoax is revealed, he will be eager to drop the burden of false beliefs and purposeless plans. Facts that protect you. Here is an astounding fact about human anxiety. Most people don't want to lose it. They claim to want freedom from tension, but unknowingly deceive themselves. In the spiritual world you can always attain any freedom you really wish to attain. Therefore, anyone who retains anxiety prefers anxiety. There is a simple explanation for this strange situation. Worry, desperation and similar states supply a false feeling of life. They cause an emotional agitation which is wrongly taken as real life. For example, a furious person lost in his own rage feels wildly alive, but he fails to see that this is merely mechanical and destructive vibration. This noisy shaking is like a car standing still with its motor roaring at top speed. The very repetition of a worry or frustration indicates an unseen preference for it. Absorb this liberating fact. When honestly seeing that you don't want to lose your anxiety, you start to lose it. Here is another startling fact about anxiety. Human beings love to create anxiety in other human beings. They want you to be frantic. It goes on in every part of society. Anxiety creates a fog that hides the unlawful acts of social schemers. Out of their own desperate need for appearing important, they promote noble appearing programs having no end but disaster. With wide smiles and pleasant manners they deceive and destroy the gullible. If people could think clearly, they would not need the social schemers, and the schemers know it, so they encourage anxiety and chaos at every opportunity. A social schemer is anyone who lives outside of natural and spiritual laws. He appears confident, but is really a scared wanderer. All this is the way it really is. And these are the facts which protect you from the invisible and evil empire that cares nothing for you. The cure for anxiety in human relations is to understand human nature. You have seen movies in which a pleasant and charming character finally turned out to be a criminal or traitor or vampire. But before his unmasking, the damage was done. It is not necessary for you to get hurt before you see. You can see first and avoid getting hurt. Human beings love to play the terrible game called share the misery. They delight in spilling their trash baskets onto the heads of anyone within sight. You must build a strong inner nature that refuses to play the game. Otherwise you will painfully resent it when someone tries to make his problem your problem. Something in you knows that only the problem maker can be the problem solver, so listen to this right information. Remember that it is usually covered up by anxious guilt and by a wrong idea of responsibility toward others. A true responsibility toward other people is to see clearly into their actual motives and schemes. Then you will always act toward them with firmness, confidence, wisdom. There are millions of trash spillers around you. Learn to know a trash spiller when you see one. This paragraph will serve this aim. Remember, self-frustration comes before other frustration. This means that other people can frustrate you only because you have first frustrated yourself by misunderstanding life. This rule applies to every other unpleasant condition. Self-damage permits damage by others. Self-weakness invites treachery by other weak people. So self-correction is the marvelous cure for all hurtful social relationships. This way is the bright way, for it leads all the way home. There is no need to be discouraged about anything. The only reason the world is too much for you is because you are too much for yourself. But all that can be changed. Outer and inner exploration. People look toward the outer world to solve problems and find happiness. He or she has high hopes in a career, education, promotion, marriage, sex, entertainment, travel. Disappointment is certain. The average man chases frantically around, spending vast amounts of mental and emotional and physical energy, and accomplishes exactly nothing. So the old course across life's sea has taken us nowhere. It is time to sail in a new direction. Here is the courageous course that will take us to the safe harbor. Inner exploration. That is the new and true course because that is the location of both the problem and the solution. Maybe the idea of inner investigation sounds mysterious to you, but that is only because you are not used to it as yet. One day it will be as comfortably familiar to you as a glass of cool water on a hot day. You will see that self-investigation for the purpose of self-enrichment is the only way that makes sense. With astonishment you will completely understand why everyone is so scared and nervous and irritable. Imagine a dozen men and women standing together outside their homes. Each of them suffers from a physical ailment. And each of them has a bottle of medicine at home which could cure them. They need only go home, take the medicine and be healed. But they don't take that sensible action. Instead, they just stand there and angrily accuse each other of causing the problem. So all remain ill. Want healing for all of life? Just go home, which means to enter the inner world where the medicine of truth is waiting for you. Take the marvelous medicine. Healing guaranteed. A hypnotized man can be placed inside a circle drawn on the ground and then be told that he cannot leave it. The suggestion can be so strong that he will be unable to walk out. That describes the human condition. A man hypnotized by past defeats willingly obeys the suggestion that he is stuck within the circle of his presently painful self. He paces anxiously around his familiar circle and then wonders why he is bored. The problem is not really a man's confinement within his self-circle. The real problem is his refusal to shake off his hypnosis, his refusal to travel beyond himself. You should realize that the circle is mental confinement only, having no permanence. And what is mental can be conquered by the spiritual. A student of higher life once asked his teacher, "How can I overcome my terrible fears?" The teacher replied, "Learn to say goodbye." "May I have details?" the student requested. "Learn to say goodbye to useless thoughts. You don't as yet see them as useless thoughts, which is the whole problem. You painfully believe that you must let foolish ideas and memories dizzily chase each other around inside your mind, like silly clowns. Just say goodbye to them in spite of your apprehension over losing them. Presently you fear to say farewell to your fearful thoughts because you don't know what will replace them. You fear the forthcoming empty space, like suddenly coming home to find all your old furniture gone. But never mind the consequences of saying goodbye. Keep saying it and walking away until tormenting thoughts see that you mean business. At that point they will also say goodbye to you, for they can no longer use and exploit you. Then the empty space will be filled with a true life of marvelous insights. The way back home. There are millions of men and women on earth. Each one of them is an example of how to behave in a problem or crisis. They are examples of how to behave, and the examples are all wrong, horribly wrong. They behave with defeat, complaint, hostility, bitterness, violence, and other forms of personal and social destruction. You need not behave like them at all. And when you don't behave like them, you will not suffer like them. You can live outside of the human hurricane. The following sections show you how to succeed. A major cause of anxiety is the feeling of being rejected, unwanted, turned away. People will do almost anything to avoid this miserable emotion. But in merely avoiding it, they guarantee that it will sneak back again and again with its agonizing blows. There is a wiser way. It consists of doing the right thing with what is wrong. Here are 5 methods for conquering the feeling of being rejected. 1. Instead of submitting meekly to its attack, question its right to take over your mind. 2. Instead of trying to escape its pain, stand there and quietly face its bluff. 3. Instead of letting it give you a strange sort of excitement, prefer to be given true mental peace. 4. Instead of tolerating its insistent repetition, refuse to go along with it anymore. 5. Instead of fearing that it can harm your real self, know that it can shake only your misunderstanding mind. Man can be compared with a prisoner of war who has escaped from the enemy camp. While trying to zigzag his way back to his homeland, he passes through endless terrors. Fearing detection, he cannot talk to anyone about his desperate position. Not having a map, he stumbles in circles for days. He fears punishment if caught. But all these difficulties really seem like nothing, for he remembers where he wants to go. This constant inspiration guides him all the way back to his homeland. Remember where you want to go. You want to go from enemy country to your natural and pleasant homeland. You want to travel from frustration to freedom. You are now on your way back home. Just cover a definite amount of distance each day. Success is certain.